Yes. So what I said is that already they put all the data, to political parties. In fact, political parties are even able to digitize the PDFs and create databases, and they don't lose any data. If they lack the expertise, we can help them. First of all, that problem does not exist. But let me go on to the very point I was making, that one of the people that she's calling an expert in biometric systems claim that the images of the prints were not present. The EC goes through a process called adjudication, quite apart from the deduplication that the system would do to check duplicates. If the system finds you to have done double registration, it will print an adjudication report for an adjudication officer who is a fingerprint expert to check when you registered first and then your second time you are registering the fingerprints, to make the comparison to determine that indeed you are the person who has done the double registration and the prints are the same. This is on page 2 of the adjudication report. And that adjudication report today, if I do double registration on the EC system and I registered in 2012, they will print my images from 2012 and compare it with my images now. So if the images didn't exist, then if I do double registration today, there will be no prints from 2012 to compare. You understand? That's why I'm saying the lies they are telling, they don't understand the system. So they are just saying anything. And I also made an earlier point that the fact that even you are not accepting those cards from that system means your beef is not with data laws doing porting. Because otherwise, the cards would be, you would welcome, if you really intended to port data, then you have no reason, going against the cards. You understand? Now, the next thing he said was the quality of the print, the biometrics, she says, let me state that the ACES, the biometric system that is being thrown away by Madame Jane Mensah, is far better than the one that is currently being used at National ID, and is far better than the one that the EC tried on the, during the shambolic pilot, registration exercise they claimed they did, which existed only at 16 centers, in the country. Why am I saying?
You are saying that the biometric data that currently exists is better than the one they are trying to deploy?
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, that, it takes the quality of the print and the quality of the algorithm that will match the print. That combined determines the performance of the system, how accurate the biometric will be. And I would want to point you to page 5 of the Electoral Commission's press conference they did on the, I think, 31st of, is it 30th or 31st of December 2019. They talk about 34,000 people who had to be verified manually. And out of about 5.4 million. That represents 0.6%. If you have a biometric system that can verify 99.4% of your population, that is a very good system. The other thing also you need to note is that brings us into what is happening at National ID. People are just saying there has been 2 issuance of cards. That is not the case. It is not that trivial, because there are 2 forms. When you have a reissuance of cards, the PIN number is consistent on both cards, which means the problem happened on the right side of the biometric system after the biometric deduplication had been done. You understand? That's a big deal, all right. But it's not as much as a problem of your biometric system when you have the card having 2 different PIN numbers, and both instances have occurred with the NIA system. One, you have some of the cards that are duplicated, having 2 different PIN numbers, which means it's an issue of scheduling before that person's data went through the biometric system. And if the biometric system couldn't catch the fact that it had already processed the person, then there's a matching problem. And this type of AFIS can never be compared to the one that has 99.4% inclusion rate on our population. So we are throwing away, or we claim to be cleaning a system with a biometric system that is inferior to the new system that we are, to the old system that we are throwing away. That's a very important point to make. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I get it.
Yes. So let's come to the EC's own system and the pilots they did. First of all, I have several issues with the pilots. If you are deploying 8,000 machines across the length and breadth of this country at all polling stations, then perhaps your choice of locating the machines that you are using for pilots only at your district centers is problematic, because connectivity and all those things are different at your district centers compared to Funifuni, Dabai, Mamchimisi, and all those local areas where you have to climb a tree before you can make a call. That's the first point. Another issue I have with that pilot has to do with the fact that 16 is not representative enough sample of 8,000 machines that is to be deployed. Even if you decide to take 1%, which I still believe is too small, it will amount to 80 machines. But let us just ignore all that. So I refuse to call that a pilot, by the way. But let's ignore all of that. You were in this country when it happened that people in some regions went to register on a new machine, and the machine said they had already been registered. That's a serious malfunction. That's a false match. And it's a serious malfunction of the biometric system. So you see, these are the issues that we are talking about. And that is the same reason why in 2012, some of us advocated that even the period with which we were procuring the machines and testing the machines were not enough. It will lead to verification problems on election day. And lo and behold, we had to vote twice, in 2 days for the first time. This time around, we have 5 months to election. And the Electoral Commission is saying that they would go through a registration period for 38 days, 30 days, 3 days for mop-up, and 5 days for rotation to the various other polling stations. After that, they are claiming that they are going to do data transmission and end-of-life data processing, which takes a month, which has always taken a month. And that the registration takes us to first week of August. 1 month from that, we go to first week of September. And then they are claiming that they are going to do adjudication and deduplication, which takes another month. And after that, they will now come and print provisional register, which takes about a month, but because they've got new machines, it may come to about 3 weeks. You see, then they are coming to do corrections, which takes another month, because the corrections are even more tedious. Because if the corrections are issues you have found on the ground and therefore cannot be automated, you have to deal with each problem according to the each issue according to the problem that is attached with. It takes another month. Then you come and print final register. That, when you do the calculation, brings you the final register conclusion to somewhere in January. So the issue that we are asking the Electoral Commission is, which of these processes are you going to truncate? Which of these processes are you going to shorten on, and how are you doing that? Because if you take any of them out, it has its consequences. I'll give you an example. When they took out end-of-life data processing during the limited registration, that is how come you had so many people with their data missing on during the exhibition. In fact, Elembele threatened to go to court, and they quickly came to say that they assure us that they are going to do end-of-life data processing, and therefore, during the election, everybody's name will be in the register. So, with this assurance, they also made sure the register was given to us on time for us to inspect that everybody's data was in the register. You see, so every step you skip has its own problems. Adjudication and you can't automate it. You run into legal challenges because if you ask the machine to just cut anybody who it has found to have done double registration of, that will be offending very serious international standards, which says that you cannot allow the machine alone to disenfranchise anybody, and it's consistent with the Supreme Court ruling during the what do you call it? The challenge that took place in 2012. So where are they going to cut this process short? That will bring us a final register on time for us to file nominations. You know, on time for us to do transfers, if any. Well, transfers, they may say it's not really relevant because they have just registered. But on time to file nominations. Because nomination filing, you need people who are valid voters. And therefore, it cannot happen until you have a register that is signed by the commissioner. You see, the time is not there. This is not possible. But just in case all these things don't make sense to anybody, let us look at 2019. Between 17th of June and 17th of December, the Electoral Commission registered 1.2 million people and couldn't go through all these processes, had to skip some. You know, and they finished and did the elections on the 17th of December. So between 17th of June and 17th of December, they had issues with these processes I have mentioned to you. So the question is, if the same person is now telling you that this time around, between 30th of June, which is July, all the way to 7th of December, this time not 17th, because we don't have the luxury of shifting it further to the right. The Constitution says it must happen 30 clear days before the expiration of the tenure of the president. So the latest time you can do it is 7th of December. So if that person is telling you that within this shorter period of 5 months, he is going to register almost 18 million people. Statistical Service says 18 and above population is now 17.6. The person says he's going to register 17.6 million people, and there will be no problem. You should know that we are heading for a disaster. You understand what I'm saying? So, per their own performance, it doesn't add up. Per the processes they go through, it doesn't add up. It's inconsistent with ECOWAS protocols, which says that within 6 months, no major reforms should be done, unless you have absolute consensus from all major political actors. So you see that the things that are coming up, and plus all the misinformation that these people are spewing out, and the deception that, you know, if you check their presentation on slide 27, they say, oh, is the EC, and I almost have memorized the slide. Is the EC going to discard the old register? Answer is no with 3 exclamation signs. Means no, no, no. We are going to port data. When you come in, you bring your ID card. We just check you as present, recapture your photo, because they claim they want to do facial recognition for election, which has never been done on this planet. Not as a primary or secondary biometric for verification to election. When we asked them, they said that the EC's own first said that they are going to do, the country that has done that before is Somalia. We had to remind them that Somalia's president was elected by less than 400 people. And if you are going to use the technology you claim, they are the only people who have used it. In our case, where our electoral college is it's almost 18 million. Then God help us. You see, so all the things that they are doing, the deception. And if you tell the eminent advisors, you yourself have put them together, prominent people in this country, you tell them, the National House of Chiefs, you tell almost everybody, former presidents, that you are going to use the old data you put, and then you come back and say you are going to lose data when you put. Didn't you make that assessment before you sent that slide out? Because that slide was an answer to the fact that you didn't have enough time to do the registration. So you claimed that the registration is just going to be some form of validation of the person still being alive. As you come, your data is already there. We just capture your photo and fingerprint. So this is the type of electoral commission that we are dealing with. You understand, my brother?
So as far as you're concerned, those two reasons are untenable. They cannot stand.
Not at all. In fact, I think that I believe the party would be, we will call pressmen tomorrow, and I want to believe, I have been away for a while, I'm back. I want to believe that some of these issues will be dealt with, very seriously in the press statements that the party is going to issue.
The other point to make that surprising is that from the timelines, there's no way the EC can go through a thorough process and put together a proper register before January 2021.
Yes, the only way is if you skip some of these major processes which have serious consequences. Yes.
That will make
for example, let me take you on a different tangent and make some analysis for you too.
Okay, because that will make an election impossible.
Well,
and unconstitutional.
Sure. Exactly. I'm sure they know that the party they are just being deceptive. You see, let me take you through another form of analysis of even how many we can capture. How many people we can capture? One, you say you are deploying 6,800 machines at a time. Now, and you are registering for 30 days. If you and then each machine, because you yourself have imposed on yourself the painful process of having to find two guarantors to come and vouch for you, that prolongs the registration period and cuts the throughput of your machines in half. But let's assume that the machines can do 50 a day, each one can do 50 a day. If you multiply 50 by the 8 by the 30 days, and if you multiply the 3 days for markup, you are still at about 10.7 million. That is to say that none of the machines will have any issue. It doesn't really happen in any registration process, by the way. But let us assume that Madam J. Mensah has some powers that will make all her machines function and there will be no downtime. And therefore, the maximum throughput would be achieved. That brings us to about 10 million. So the 10 million, Fiscal Service is also saying we have 17.6 million people who are eligible to vote in this country.
And the EC itself has said 15 to 16 million.
Okay, let's even use the EC's own 15 to 16 million. The rest beyond your maximum throughput of registering within that time frame, only 10 million. What happens? What happens to them? It's a question we should be asking.
You are saying if the system works perfectly, no yes. problems, the maximum they can register within the period that they have set is 10.7 million.
It's a little over 10 million.
That is way below the number on the current register as we speak.
Exactly. You see, look at, there's a document that Mr. Freddie Blay issued. And interestingly, around the same time the EC was arguing, and I can send you that document if you send a hi to me on WhatsApp. And in that document, he has said that the EC will need continuous, I think 90 days or so registration to be able to achieve 18 million. And that is if every machine is doing 60. No, every machine will not do 60 because of the vouching process. But let's even assume that we agree with him. So in effect, I agree with Mr. Freddie Blay that the 30 days is not going to work. It won't achieve those numbers. And not with the machine you have never used before. And your technicians are not used to. Even the 16 that were tried, the issues that came up. Some of them, I was at Damango when they were doing it. There was a conflict with the internal, the camera, the webcam installed on the laptop. They had to disable it. Even that, it was one of our technicians who actually, assisted in doing that. Where they disabled the internal webcam to allow their high resolution webcam to take over and allow registration to go on. You see, so it has been one exception after the other. Just even look at the pilot. You issue a statement saying that you are going to start a pilot. It's going to last for 2 days. And the issues you find, you will fix them. You will work with the manufacturer to fix them. Meanwhile, the time that you are starting the pilot, your machines are already on the sea coming. So why are you going to fix those machines? Because during Dr. Farijan's case, it had to lead to changing some hardware components which required the manufacturer to do. So the issues you find, where are you going to fix them? Because by the time you were saying that you are, because you want to check the box that you have done pilot, because you want to check that box, you come up with some 2 days when your machines have already shipped from the factory and say you are doing pilots. And so when you identify those, because there were issues that were identified. You see, imagine all these challenges with 16 machines. If they transfer into the general registration process, and the time it took technicians to resolve, how do you achieve registration of even your 15 to 16 million people that you have said? Then again, don't forget, the statistical service is saying 17.6 million. And the EC is notorious for spewing out figures that they haven't checked with statistical service. If you remember, during the limited registration, Madam Jemensa said her projected people to register was 300,000. We went to statistical service and they said 1.7 million people were eligible. When we came back, she only moved it to 500,000. And what happened? After the registration, she said she had registered 1.2 million people, but it was her PR campaign that made her so successful. You know, PR campaign cannot make anybody 10, 18 years overnight. So it is just that they intentionally underquoted the figure that is to be registered. But because they themselves, their strategy that they were only going to exist at the district centers, were sure that it will lead to them disenfranchising a lot of people. And in order not to be embarrassed by that, the low figures, they projected low. You understand what I'm saying? The same thing they are trying to do, they say 15 to 16 million. Why is statistical service? The institution that we all have, designated as an institution that should be given as these figures, is also saying something else. So this is the type of commission we are dealing with. So
their targets alone is an admission that they are on a road to disenfranchising people. If you look at the numbers they are giving.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to the other conversation one day, because you spoke briefly about it, the issue with the National Identification Authority. Meanwhile, we'll also be monitoring that press conference, if it does come on this week, that you said the NDC may be holding. On the NIA issue, you briefly spoke about it, the duplication we are seeing, and also the fact that there are lots of numbers of people who have still not gotten the ID card. But let's start with the duplication. You said it's a systemic issue?
Yes, it is. It occurs at two positions within the AFIS workflow. You know, when you do the registration and then you insert data into the workflow, then it is only what we call a transaction ID that is issued to each and everyone who has been put in a workflow. The reason why we don't issue a PIN number, a final PIN number, is that you have to cross the AFIS. The AFIS is like the point of purification, if I may put it that way. Once you go through the AFIS successfully, it means that you haven't tried to double register. There's no problem with you. The biometric system accepts you into the system. And then after you have gone through the point of purification, you are issued with a national PIN number, which starts with GHA, which is the ICAO country code for Ghana, and then it follows it up with numbers, with the last digit being used as checksum. That's a different thing altogether. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that it happens at two locations is that there are two forms of cards that are duplicated in a system. One of them has the same PIN number, which means it is an issue of rescheduling of people whose card had already been printed at the printing side, which is on the right side of the point of purification, which is the AFIS. Then the other one has two separate PIN numbers, which means an individual was able to have two separate PIN numbers. That means that that individual has two records in the national database, and that's a serious problem. Because the records of the national database, the only unique one, guaranteed unique portion, is the fact that the PIN, that's why we call it the PIN number, the unique identifier, the primary key to that database. So the fact that a card, two cards of the same person is having two separate PIN numbers means the error happened on the left side of the AFIS, which is the point of purification. The person had not gone through yet. So they rescheduled his biometric for it to be checked the second time. And an AFIS should be able to catch that. The person has already been tried. That is the essence of the AFIS. The essence of the AFIS is that if you register one time and your data is being put in again, whether you registered again or it is mistakenly being put again, the AFIS should be able to stop it. That, hey, you are already there. If it goes through the second time, it issues you a different PIN again, which means the AFIS couldn't determine that you had already come through the system. And that is a serious problem with this biometric system, and that makes it inferior to the one that the EC is throwing away. Did you hear any of these double registration and rampant as it was during the EC registration? No. We have used it several times. And let me also say that the biggest, we have only scratched the surface of the problem. Because they are only reporting. There has to be a serious technical audit of the system to determine how many people may have been having two cards. Because in any database that the NIA is going to be used as a primary document, they are going to use the NIA PIN to uniquely identify an individual. So if one person is having two PINs, that's a problem. It means that the mandatory use of national ID card for whatever means to make sure that one person gets one identity has been defeated. And as a nation, we should be very concerned at this. And as a nation, we should be more concerned that such a system is claimed to be used to clean up another system. What is cleaner? If you get what the analysis I'm trying to make.
No.
So all these discussions must take place. You see, they have realized that perhaps there's going to be some judgment early next week. So they steal some of the lies that they told earlier and we dealt with. They started bringing them back into the system. They started mounting all sorts of platforms and talking all over the place with lies, with the hope that it will confuse some of these people who are making judgment, because there's always some lack of understanding in some of these very complicated systems. So anything you say that makes some partial sense, people will take it. But everything they have said so far doesn't make any sense.
So I wanted to ask you a question about your tenure as NIA, head of the National Identification Authority. When you were there, was the system in place, the system we are talking about, or you had not acquired any yet?
Well, the system, as we had it, we had gone through a factory acceptance test of the system in December of 2016. And one of the issues, in fact, I would reluctantly, I wouldn't want to put out some of the issues we found, but a report exists that, I was I led the team initially to pick the first, walkthrough that they did, just to make sure that, it will not, the report that comes is consistent with what I saw. And the report that we put together has issues that if had been dealt with, we will not be having this problem. That's what I can say. It's it will be difficult for me to go into detail, but we flagged certain things that we found on the system, and the report was handed over to Prof. Satifa. So he has that report. And I believe that if that report had been used, we wouldn't have this problem.
And are you confident they are using the same system, or they have procured their own? Because it looks like there was some mention of some 1.2 billion, which was not the amount you were looking at the time.
Yes, at that time, the central system that we were dealing with, the price was $5.7 million. And even that, we had issues with the price, And then we were actually dealing with a company that was going to swallow that aspect into a whole registration system, which will issue at that time 16 million cards to Ghanaians, and it was going to be at the cost of, I believe it was 123 million euros. This is what we knew. And then all of a sudden, we were slapped with just the expansion of that small portion of the system, which is the heart of the system. Expanded it, and all of a sudden we have a 15-year contract of $1.2 billion. You understand? You remember I issued a press statement on this matter, that's the biggest scam I have personally in my lifetime seen. That something that could have cost us less than 150 million euros, the government is claiming they don't have enough money to do it, so they have to do a PPP on such a secure system. Put that PPP on their security biometric system. And then they said they were going to do a PPP, and this time they are bringing in, I think, 200 and something million dollars as their portion of the PPP, while the private partner brings in, I think, about 600 or something million dollars. So the question we said is that if that is the case, then why would there be the need for that PPP when in the money we have, there were several companies that were willing to do the system for us for far less than the money you claim you are going to use as seed money for the PPP. So that is where we were with that story. And then all of a sudden, cards were issued to the president on the 15th of September 2016 with the claim that they have done a new system, and they've done the system, and which system, I can confidently tell you at that point, they didn't even add a pen drive to it, and then they gave 12 months to, it is rather a misapplication of the entire process and how we intended to do instant issuance. And that has led to a 3-year, dragging of this process, which has only led to about 30-something% of people who are eligible to vote having this card in their hands. Then what do? They go to the field, and this time they decide that they are not going to use biometric verification to issue out the card. The cards are only initialized when you go through that verification process. So the cards they are giving to people are not initialized. And let me also point out that this is a system, the system of going through biometric verification before issuance biometric verification before issuance was put together by Professor Dumo. This same system was inherited by Dr. Hadi and endorsed by Professor Tepa first, and endorsed by Professor Tepa in 2008. This same system was inherited by Dr. Ahadi and was endorsed and used to issue cards under Dr. Ahadi. It was used to issue cards under Dr. Koba. It was used to issue cards under my tenure as Chief Executive of the authority. And it was also used to issue cards under Professor Atefa version 2.0. When he came, until we had this problem with EC's timeline, that was the process he used to issue cards. But because they are trying to cut corners, they have caused a serious security breach of the national identification system just to enable the Electoral Commission to go ahead and to go ahead and say they are removing their old ID cards from the system. You understand what I'm saying? Look, as for the issues, there are so many things that, sometimes you wonder, is this really in Nkrumah's Ghana where these people have even gotten this far with all these machinations and lies and stuff that, has been going on? If you get me.
Because you're saying they are trying to cut corners because they want to do this solely for the purpose of the voters register. What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, for some strange reason, the Mensa says, I want to accept my own card. This has always been the case since Dr. Afarijan. So they say they won't accept my own. I will accept only national ID card. National ID comes out and say, hey, it is consistent with LI 2111 that mandatory use of cards, 17 institutions should not accept any card apart from our card. The question is, how many of the 15 remaining institutions are going by this law? Because I know Association of Bankers says, once your cards do not exist, even if a law exists, we can't use it. So if you go to the bank, the preferred ID card is actually the Electoral Commission's ID card. You understand? So then we come to a point where we bring out, you remember a press conference that came out with the statistics of the cards that have been issued so far. So we brought that out. And when we brought it out, it became very clear that, for example, if you go to Upper West, only 4.something% of the population who are eligible to vote have the card. Upper East is the same. So you have 95% of the people in both Upper East and Upper West, Ahapu, and all those places who don't have the card that you are calling the sole card that you want to use for registration. Now, in order to cover that up, NIA says, we are going to do very rapid issuance of cards, and therefore we would go to the field without verification machine. When you, in actual fact, you know that without verification, your card itself is initial. It's not initial. It's a smart card. Your crypto keys and all those things are not initialized without the verification process. And that also has...
You have just 1 minute remaining.
Give somebody's card out to another person. That is also possible. So these are the issues that we got. All these things, I believe, will be captured in the press statement, which will be issued tomorrow.
Well, we're waiting for that.